you said that you don't like the word obese, but you're very happy to say fat. Can you talk to us a little bit about, the fat acceptance movement, which is something that people may not have heard of?
Yes, sure. Look, I haven't met a large person who likes to be called obese. I think it's a medical term. Not everybody likes to reclaim the word fat. I like to think of it as a descriptor, the way you'd use thin or tall, and that you can separate the word fat from from other words that you might associate with it, like traditionally words like lazy or gluttonous or stupid, or these kinds of negative words that you sometimes see attached to fat, or like bullying in the school ground and so on. Behaviour, when we talk about healthy behaviour, I don't like to see it linked to obesity because I think that is a stereotype, that people who are obese are unhealthy and people who are thin are healthy. So I like to deconstruct that. Yeah, I just want to add to what's being said here. And I think it's interesting because the talk is very much, as I usually predict, it's going into the health territory. So tonight's about obesity, and yes, the obesity epidemic. But there is still a very strong link here being made between health and obesity. And I'd like to just question that a little bit. Now, the fat acceptance movement doesn't claim that there is no link between certain health conditions and obesity, but we claim that they're being exaggerated, manipulated, and there are lots of reasons for that. Some of it's related to funding, who gets funding and why, and some of it is related to body policing as well.
A fat activist in Brisbane. I blog at Fat Heffalump, where I've been blogging for about 5 years. And it's my goal to change the way people think about fatness. I always thought I was fat. One of my earliest memories, I was called fat. I've always been called fat. And I believed that the worst thing a person could possibly be was fat. Through my teens and 20s and early 30s, I just battled it in every single way I could. You name the diet, I was on it. You name the weight loss plan, I was on it. I believed that I couldn't do anything in life that was good until I was thin. I couldn't have any form of success, couldn't have a good job, couldn't have a loving relationship, couldn't be happy in any way. So I didn't try. I haven't always been fat. I was actually a regular sized little girl, and when I was 17 I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Since then, taking insulin and treating my diabetes regularly, I slowly became fatter and fatter. When I began to gain weight, I was a little worried, my mother was a little worried, but as time went on, I became okay with being fat. Fat acceptance is the radical notion that fat people are human beings and deserve respect. I discovered fat acceptance probably about 6 years ago. I think it was on Twitter that somebody must have retweeted an article. And as per anything on the internet, you read one and the vortex gets you, and you read the next thing and the main things that I find is that I'm under constant surveillance. You can't go anywhere without being watched by people. That happened before I dyed my hair pink. It happened before I chose to wear bright colours. I used to be what I referred to as a brown sparrow. I would wear dark colours, not wear anything that was visible. It was before I had tattoos, and people would kind of, even then, still sort of make a comment about the fatty, you know. People judge me for my weight all the time. I go out in public, people will give my husband and I looks. We take up a lot of space when we walk down the road holding hands on a footpath. I remember when we were trying to jog once, they were cheering us on like we were in a marathon, and you could tell it was quite sarcastic.
Yeah, you get that from time to time. There's people that think they're, having a bit of fun, but realistically it does hurt sometimes.
It does hurt, yeah.
We hear in the news all the time about an obesity epidemic and how people are dying of obesity. And what we see is that it's just not true. What is true is that people are heavier than they used to be, but What's also true is that we're living longer than ever before.
People ask me all the time if you can be fat and healthy. I'm not offended by that question. I feel like it reflects on me a little bit because I feel like I am a fat and healthy person.
I'm not healthy. I'm going to say that because I have 2 autoimmune diseases. I can't say that I'm fully healthy, but I'm doing the best that I can to live a great life.
I'm not the expert on societal health. I am the expert on living in my body. I'm not a disease, and I'm not diseased. This is the body that I come in.
If someone offered me a way to instantly lose my weight, guaranteed success tomorrow, I probably still wouldn't accept their offer. We shouldn't all be the same. There's nothing wrong with who I am. There's nothing wrong with being a fat person. Just like there's nothing wrong with being a non-fat person.
Fat acceptance led me to a place where I could be who I wanted to be. And so I started to ask myself how I wanted to be. And that was positive and bright and colourful and fun. And it's a really good feeling. It is a really good feeling to not hate myself.
All right.
When I first appeared on stage, what was your perception of me? Lazy, disgusting, perhaps depressed, unmotivated, unhealthy. Based on my appearance, it's usually assumed that I'm lazy and unhealthy, that my weight and my condition in life are self-inflicted. That's not true, but often I don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Now, those stereotypical perceptions that pop in people's minds when they see someone affected by obesity, that's weight bias. And while a stranger's opinion of me, like the woman in the grocery store who once made fun of my cankles, might hurt my feelings. But weight bias that I've experienced in healthcare has hurt me physically. When doctors and nurses have the perception that I'm lazy and unmotivated and non-compliant, that influences the care they provide and then has a negative impact on my health. Now, perhaps you're wondering, how is my health? Metabolically speaking, I'm actually pretty healthy. I don't have diabetes, I don't have sleep apnea, and I don't have high blood pressure. I've had tests canceled because I weigh too much for the equipment. Okay, if I can't have the test, then how's my doctor going to make a diagnosis? And so I'm concerned, and I speak up and I'm told I shouldn't expect to be accommodated for my poor lifestyle choices. Well, that's weight bias. I'm told that doctors and hospitals shouldn't have to buy expensive equipment for just a few patients. Now the pulmonologist walks in the room and greets me by saying, "Oh, I know why you're short of breath. You weigh over 300 pounds. I don't even need to examine you." That's weight bias. When doctors were surveyed, they indicated the higher the patient's BMI, the less desire they had to treat them. When nurses were surveyed, 31% indicated they'd prefer not to treat patients affected by obesity, and 24% said they were actually repulsed by such patients. Repulsed. I'm repulsed by the fact that more than 50% of nurses admit to engaging in weight bias. We've been ignored by healthcare, while taking the blame for being a public health.
To me, it's almost like reverting back to the civil rights movement. Now we're telling fat folks that they have to buy an extra seat. Not too long ago, my grandparents had to sit on the back of a bus. It's almost like segregating folks based on the way they look.
I can't imagine. Did you really say that?
This, to me, is an issue. And if we put the armrest down, this is a challenge. Now, you say, Michael, that people that are large should buy more than one seat.
Correct.
All right. And you guys think this is unreasonable to expect you to fit in comfortably, correct?
Yes.
Will you come sit in this seat? Right here? Okay.
Ooh, that's really tight.
Yeah, see, that's going to be really uncomfortable.
This was even tighter than the one I flew out here on.
Yeah?
And yeah.
And if If you and I are next to each other,
Then I gotta go like this to get away from your shoulders.
we got a real problem, girl, or we're going to need to get to know each other really well.
Intimate.
Particularly if we're headed for Tokyo.
Oh, boy.
or somewhere. Now, but what is the answer for this? This is what people have built. This is a problem.
Look at this. Can you tell me that this is safe and comfortable for me to sit like this? And then I have to have seatbelt extenders to get this seatbelt fastened to this seatbelt. And the more pieces you put in there, the less safe it becomes. It's not comfortable. This is poking in my back. This thing here is poking in my hip. It's not comfortable. And it's not safe. I believe that we come in all sizes. Obviously, we can see that by the audience here. We need to respect one another and get over this obsession with insisting that everybody needs to be the same size. We don't all need to be the same size. Thin does not equal health, and fat does not equal disease. I'm 62 years old. I'm not on any medication. I'm not saying that everything is perfect in my life, but I've been fat all my life, and I've made it to 62 without having to be on any medications or any things. I'm not dying because of my fat.
All right, 30.
I feel that the war on obesity should not be a war on obese people, that people of all sizes should be respected and should be honored and be able to be who they are. You should embrace your authentic self. If you want to stay larger, stay larger. If you want to be smaller, be smaller. But to make judgments about people based on their size, to use the war on obesity or use a disguise as health when it's really hate, doesn't make sense and it's not intelligent.
Talk about what is considered even a controversial subject within feminism, thin privilege. Before I start, I'm gonna say I'm a thin person, I have thin privilege. I don't experience any form of fat phobia or fat shaming, so this is coming from a privileged perspective. People in the West very clearly live in societies that glorify a specific type of body. That's the kind of body that's glorified in television, in movies, in advertising, basically any kind of visual media. This glorification of very specific body types affects everyone. It affects your self-esteem, it affects your own self-image, it affects the types of bodies that you think are acceptable and are attracted to. So a side effect of this glorification of very specific body types is the idea that fat bodies are unattractive, unappealing. I think one of the main privileges that thin people experience, and yes, I'm including very thin people, is that their weight doesn't exclude them from getting proper medical care. This is a very common experience where if someone is considered fat, they go into the doctor, and instead of focusing on the ailment that they're talking about, the doctor will say, oh, I think you need to lose some weight. There's a higher mortality rate for fat people for many different diseases because they're discriminated against, because they're not taken seriously. On top of that, fat people are also more likely to be discriminated in the workplace. They're more likely to be viewed as lazy or less likely to get hired for a job because of their weight. Fat people are viewed as neglectful parents. The list goes on.